This is Greg Drevenstedt, Editor-in-Chief at Rider Magazine, and your host for the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast. Our guest on episode 59 is Nick Ienatsch, CEO and lead instructor at the Yamaha Champions Riding School, and he was interviewed by Associate Editor Paul Dail. Many of you are probably familiar with Nick Ienatsch. He was a founding editor of Sport Rider magazine, and he's written extensively for Motorcyclist and Cycle World magazines. Ienatsch competed in various AMA, WERA, and other road racing series in the late 80s and 90s, and he's the author of the 2003 book, Sport Riding Techniques. After serving as lead instructor at the Freddie Spencer Riding School for more than a decade, Ienatsch started the Yamaha Champions Riding School, which provides on-track and street-based training around the U.S. Back in 2012, I completed a 2-day YCRS school at Las Vegas Motor Speedway, and I learned a lot that still informs my riding today. Some of the YCR catchphrases, like load the tire before you work the tire, still echo in my head on test rides. In January, Paul Dail completed a 2-day YCRS ChampSchool course at Las Vegas Motor Speedway. His review of the school can be found on ridermagazine.com and in the June issue of Rider. In this episode, Paul and Nick take a deep dive into ChampSchool. To learn more about Yamaha Champions Riding School, including their Champ U online program, visit ridelikeachampion.com. Thanks for listening, and keep the rubber side down.
Well, Nick, thank you so much for being with us today. I appreciate that. And, as I had mentioned in my article, thank you so much for the class and everything great that you instructed and your other instructors gave me during those 2 days. It was a great experience. I'd like to move on. Of course, we're here to talk a little bit both about the class and, of course, you as the subject of the interview today. So you've done a lot of amazing things, from racing to writing as both a moto journalist and an author, to instructing riders, and I think as a moto journalist, and in many cases instructing riders. So I'd like to talk a little bit about that. I feel kind of like I'm interviewing a celebrity today. I'm not used to interviewing such well-known folks. I hate to ask questions that make someone narrow down their response from a wide field to just one superlative thing. So instead, I'll ask you, can you tell me maybe one of the things that you might consider one of your greatest accomplishments over the years? Or maybe a couple things if you want to even narrow it down that much.
So basically, you're asking me to start the interview by bragging about myself. That's a good one. I like that. I do want to say kudos back to you, Paul, and to Greg for you to come to the school to continue your rider education experience, because you're going to ride motorcycles that readers are thinking about spending their money on. And so the more you understand riding technology and et cetera, the better your reviews will be. And I know I read a lot of magazines, and I always kind of want to know, who am I reading? What have they done? And so I just want to thank you back for being open-minded and coming to the school and doing so well, having such a great enthusiasm for it and also open-mindedness. So kudos back. To get to your question, there are a lot of things as you look back, especially at my age. I'm 61 now. You look back at life, and you're a part of so many strong groups. And the current group that we're a part of right now with YCRS Yamaha Champions Riding School has really morphed into a group of the willing. And we have brought in some young instructors that have completely bought into this idea that we are a customer service company that happens to ride motorcycles. And that idea that everybody who shows up at our school has shown an interest to improve their riding, and our only job is to make that happen. And so that's one of the things that I am super proud of when I watch these young men and women who work for us do such a strong job. That gives me great joy, because we've all wanted to ride well, and we've all wanted to be world champion. And that's, whether that every reader out there has just thought that, but anybody who's gone racing has wanted to be the world champion. So to be able to help people along, I know you're laughing, but to be able to help people along the goal of becoming that rider with this group that we have is truly a blessing.
Well, and I chuckle a little. I don't foresee myself as uh, seeing that checkered flag anytime soon. But I know
Yeah.
during the class there were some folks there that that were definitely interested in making a career out of it, increasing their abilities. So I know that's the truth, and I know a lot of our readers are also interested in that as well. And I'll say, I had mentioned in my article, and I'll say it again here, just props to the way you and your instructors facilitated the class. I like that you said a group of the willing and a customer service company that just happens to ride motorcycles. I was blown away by the I don't want to make it sound like you were too easy on us, but the courtesy and the consideration and really the care in the approach and that was taken by all of the instructors. I admit I was a little intimidated going in. I did watch the core curriculum classes, and I got a sense. I was like, wow, these are nice folks, and they're having a good time. But I was still a little intimidated, and that quickly went away. So I appreciate that approach that you've all taken.
Problem. And it speaks to something that you probably heard at the school is we wanted to make this the golden rule school. In other words, what kind of school would the instructors like to go to? And let's make that school happen. And every one of my instructors at any age or length of time of employment has a voice at the table at our school, because all we want to do is make those 2 days or even our 1 day programs the most correct information we can pack in those 2 days. And we charge some money for this. It's an expensive school for a lot of reasons, but it is an expensive school, and we realize that up front. And you remember we said you got to get your money's worth out of this thing, because our idea was, if whoever attends wants to become a good rider, and good means safe at any speed you choose. That's how we define that. You want to go to the Alps and ride an Alps tour and be safe. You want to ride 2 up across the country and be safe, whatever your goals are. If you have 2 days and you can spend 2 days with us, we will equip you for the rest of your life with a notebook full of what we believe are the best practices. And so it is a bit of money. We realize it's a bit of money, and we're going to do our very best to over deliver and give you more than you paid for. And I know that that's just this customer service idea is such a common touch point and talk point that people say, oh, we value customer service. But you know what, Paul? I deal with companies and restaurants and telephone companies and insurance companies like you all do every single day. And I don't see good customer service very often. And so it pushes me and my group to step up and provide above and beyond what people paid for. And that's what I'm proud of the kids that work for us, carrying that message.
Well, again, I believe you are accomplishing that. So well done to the whole team. You mentioned something that I'd like to that segues nicely into the next question I have. You mentioned that you want to give riders the most correct information. And I remember hearing that, and it might have been either in the Champions Habits core curriculum or maybe at the class in Las Vegas, maybe both. But I remember hearing that you said that the riding school prides itself on staying up to date and bringing that newest information. One of the things I mentioned in my article is how interesting it was to me how much math and science plays into effective riding. Obviously the laws of physics aren't changing. So can you maybe give an example for our listeners of where you've seen and incorporated new information or maybe the impact of new technology into your riding or instructional techniques?
Yeah. Thanks for noticing that. And I think once you get married into a curriculum and you cast it in stone, or worse, you write it out. No, I'm just kidding. We've written ours out. But once you cast your curriculum into stone and say everybody teaches this forever, man, you get in trouble because it doesn't fit everybody. If we weren't always willing to advance and learn, I think we would have been stuck a long time ago. And now you're teaching things that are not just outdated, but don't work any longer. I'll give you a couple of good examples. One is that, and this is track specific. This one is that we found that we were teaching too much initial head drop at turn in. And as we started to watch the top racers and speak with them, and that's why it's called the Champions School, what are the best in the world doing? We saw that they would pause their head drop at tip in and leave something left over for the drive off the corner, that head drop for the drive off the corner. So we went with that one. You and every student that comes to our school did the Rossi leg dangle, right? You dangled your inside leg going into the corner.
Well, I tried.
Yeah, that's right. You tried. And if you came around and said, well, why would I do that? Well, Valentino Rossi believes he can brake harder. He lowers his center of mass by that inside leg off. And I was saying, Pecco Bagnaia has been, we teach, and the best in the world are never in the middle of the seat in the brake zone. Their butt is always prepared to the side in the brake zone. But Bagnaia has his butt off to the side of the upcoming corner, but he's got his inside knee pinching the fuel tank to brace himself against the tank a little bit better. And we would teach butt off, knee out in the brake zone. And now we're saying, no, you can leave that knee in against that fuel tank to pinch that tank, but your butt cannot be in the middle of the seat. So those are three quick instances of what how we keep evolving. And then we have realized that we get our eyes into the slowest point of the corner. We don't just look at turn in point, apex, exit, turn in point, apex, exit like we used to teach. We actually look at turn in point and then the slowest part of the corner, which is generally speaking in most exit type corners, as you know, is before the apex. And we actually look at that spot. So we teach that. And then we came up with this realization that we get into, for street riding, which is, I love street riding, and my instructors love street riding. Even my road racers love street riding. It's just such a joy. We started to realize that in every corner there's a decision point, and that point is at the point in the corner at which you can look through and start to see the exit and decide what control to use and what to do with your radius, thus your speed. So that decision point became a big part of our school maybe 9, 10, 11 months ago, where we realized, man, we are getting to a point in the corner that allows us to visually decide what to do as opposed to just riding the corner via radius or et cetera. So those are the kind of things, Paul, those are just five quick examples of us tweaking and tweaking and tweaking. And, I've got just insanely talented instructors, not just as motorcycle riders, but as communicators, and they're all wickedly focused on never crashing again. That is our focus. We want to never crash again. And there's a couple ways to do that. One way would be to quit. Well, we're not going to quit. The other way would be to go slow. Well, going slow doesn't quite fit our personality. And the other way is to get very, very good at this whole thing of motorcycle riding. So every one of my instructors, they're national champions. They're racing at a national level. They are A group fast. They're just insanely good. And they're all focused on how can I do this better at the pace I want. And so we continually are tweaking and evolving and talking. And that's, if you come back, and I hope you do, the school will be tweaked again.
Well, I certainly hope so. I think it would be, I've thought about coming back. I'd like to see that.
Yep.
Well, and you mentioned the street riding, and there's the Champ Street class specifically, but I found Champ School helped my street riding immensely, and
awesome.
I've mentioned that. I'll circle back to all those lessons you were talking about, that notebook full of the best practices. I want to come back to that, but it's definitely made a difference. I still hear those things in my head. So well done on those catchphrases too. Those are good.
Thanks.
Well, I want to kind of touch on this a little bit, staying on this line of, tweaking and evolving the instruction. And before the class started, I did pick up your book, Sport Riding Techniques. However, I'll admit that because the decision to attend Champ School was somewhat last minute for me, I went through the whole core curriculum, the digital course, but I've only started reading the book. I'll say it's a great refresher. I like to read a chapter and then go out and ride a little, if it's not snowing where I live. However, I didn't realize until I looked at the copyright that the edition I have is from 2003. But I noticed even early on, there were a few differences. For example, in the book, you start out chapter 1 by, really putting that onus directly on the rider right out of the gate. I also noticed some more minor things that, 100 points of traction is now 100 points of grip. A few other subtle differences. So when we talk about the digital curriculum and obviously the in-person, it's easier to implement this new material into that curriculum. And I know there are a few things that, the head drop, the decision point that you might have changed. But is there anything, if you could go back to the book, that you might have done differently, or you feel, pretty proud of the way it came out when it came out?
Yeah, pretty happy with the message. Pretty happy with the message. The David Bull, who's passed now, David Bull did an incredible job on the production of that book. And I mean, I sent him words and pictures, and he sent back that incredible book. I mean, it just blew me away, the way he put the photos together. I mean, he just did a great job. I'm super happy with the message. And a minor point on the message there, the book was written in 2003. I'm still happy with it. It doesn't cover traction control and some of the latest evolutions, but writing's the same. I've got a book from 80, who knows, man, 82 or 3 that Kenny Roberts wrote, and he talked about trail braking back then. So people who are out there thinking, oh, trail braking's this new thing, and no, I've got a John Surtees book, and he says in the 50s, and he said, when you get in the corner a little too, at full chat or a little too quick, however you put it, you will brush the brakes longer. And so anyway, that was kind of interesting. And so the message is still strong. The only thing I would change, Paul, I would make the message more pointed. I would use fewer words and be stronger about the message, because as I go through this motorcycle world, I hear about rider deaths, and I hear about sons and daughters, and that news comes to me, as it probably does to you as a professional in the industry. And the changes that those riders needed to make in that, just prior to that moment and in that moment, are so small. They're unbelievably small. It is literally how you learn to pick up 2% of brakes in a corner to hold your radius. It would be the difference. So I would be a lot more pointed about, this works, this doesn't, do this, don't do that, here's why.
Okay, good. Well, and that's different from what I was thinking. You definitely get that message through to the reader that there's some things you can do. But the first thing I think you said in chapter 1 is take a look in the mirror to really see the onboard engineer here. So maybe just bringing it tighter, and
Yep.
Unfortunately, the more unfortunate news we hear, the more you want to drive that message home. I can understand that. Well, and that actually ties in nicely to my next question about sort of a bigger message. Now, the riding school just released, I believe it was, let's see, February, I think, the ChampU New Rider digital course. I do remember you mentioning that at ChampSchool in Las Vegas. We ran a press release about it on ridermagazine.com. I thought when I heard it then, and since I've seen more information about it, that it's a great idea for anyone thinking about taking up riding or maybe returning to riding after an extended absence. One of the things I mentioned in my article about ChampSchool is that I'm riding, these numerous lessons are circulating through my head, depending on the riding circumstances. And you said, we provide a notebook full of the best practices. So I understand it's not reasonable to ask you what the most important lesson is. Again, there's those, give me the biggest, the best, all those types of questions. So I'm not going to ask you what the most important lesson for a new rider might be. Instead, I'll ask you what might be an overall message or a theme, one thing that you might say, here's the class, here are the lessons, but is there an overarching theme or message that you might give to a new or returning rider?
It's funny because I actually have 2 specific answers to your question, Paul, because I think the 2 specific issues that a motorcycle curious person should hear about, or a new rider, or even an advanced expert rider should know. the two spots that we're dying the most on motorcycles are, one, all by ourselves running wide in corners. That's number one. And number two is in an intersection, generally speaking, an uncontrolled intersection, which means no traffic control, stoplight, stop sign in the motorcycle's direction of travel. So that means cars pulling out in front of you out of driveways or parking lots. That's the second place we're dying. Intersections are the most common place of crash, but running wide in corners is the most common fatality. So if you are hanging around with a school who is not acknowledging that and teaching you the secrets to surviving those spots, to literally showing you exactly the motorcycle control operations that save you in those situations, then I think that's a disservice. And so with the Champion New Rider, which just came out and is on sale for $20, I mean, we're making these things so available, because if you think about a new rider in America takes a couple online hours from whatever new rider school is providing their deal, and then they show up on a Saturday and a Sunday. And then if they can pass this parking lot test, which I think is speeds up to about between 18 and 22 miles an hour is the highest speeds. If they can pass those tests, then they get a license. And now they're free to ride on the road, and they're free to buy a ZX14R the day after they graduate, which God bless America. And that's one of the benefits of living here, is that we get to do those kind of things, smart or not, but we get to. So now you've got your license, you've got your ZX14R, and you've never practiced braking above 22 miles an hour. So what we did with this Champion New Rider is said, listen, let's augment all the new rider schools' efforts, and let's backfill that with, it can take 6 to 10 hours to get through this deal. And let's backfill that and add information that they simply can't get in the 2-day school. And so that was the idea. And it all does revolve around this idea that radius is tied to mile an hour. So your cornering radius at the lean angle you choose. So whatever lean angle you're happy with, whether it's dictated by the rain, the tires, the bike dragging on the ground, or simply your newness, you can't lean over any further because you're just so new to it. Your speed dictates your radius. And to run wide in the corner, you have either not slowed the bike efficiently going in, or you've accelerated too hard mid-corner, because radius equals miles per hour. If your radius is opening, it's because your speed's not being controlled with the brakes or at minimum deceleration. So those ideas that you must trail brake pressure into the corner to control your speed into the corner efficiently is a big part of it. And then how you operate the controls, especially neutral throttle, how neutral throttle, which is a throttle setting that your bike is not yet accelerating, it is no longer decelerating, it's holding its speed, that will hold your radius. So that is a big understanding for every rider, especially brand new riders. And then how to practice braking is kind of it's a very important thing, because brake, as you felt on the 2-up laps, Paul, and you commented on them in your story, the brake pressures that the instructors put into the motorcycle with 2 people on it are unbelievable, right? It's out of this world how hard the instructors brake their motorcycles into the corners even with 2 people on them. And so the point that gets to you, I'm sure, as you got off that motorcycle is, wow, I'm nowhere near maximum braking on my motorcycle. And 99.9% of our students, even after the braking drill that we do, have not stopped their bike at maximum. So now you're riding along, car pulls out in front of you, and you've never stopped your bike at maximum, and you've never stopped your bike from above 22 miles an hour. So you're riding along at 60 miles an hour, and you haven't practiced your braking from 60. So that's one big part of Champ, you new rider, is we show you how to practice braking and how to get over that initial nervousness of the front brake lever. And the second part of the intersection issue is many new riders are taught to not cover the brakes, to not ride along in traffic, in back roads where there are deer, in parking lots, with their right hand fingers covering their brake lever, laying on their brake lever. And we've taught you, as you remember, and you were already messing with it because you were a veteran rider and doing it for a living. We need to learn to ride with our fingers covering that front brake lever. So if you're not covering the brake lever, you're now a half a second late to get to the brake lever. And at 60 miles an hour, that half second is 44 feet. So you've just given away 44 feet of every emergency by not covering the brake lever. So Champion New Rider talks about trailing brake pressure into the corner, neutral throttle, and only accelerating when you can see the exit and take away lean angle. That covers that idea of running wide in the corner. And it shows you how to practice braking. Literally every motorcycle ride you go on, how to practice braking safely, and insists that you cover the brake lever and shows you why. So that answers your question, is that what are the major things you would look at? Well, those are the major things. How to quit dying on a motorcycle.
That's a good lesson.
Yeah,
That is a
yeah,
good
I would like that lesson. I mean, if I'm going to go skydiving, I want to find the skydivers who have done this forever and say, hey, you've really done this well. You're not dead. How are people dying? That would probably be one of my very first questions. And I actually do want to go hang gliding. How are people dying when they hang glide? And the instructor would say, well, you know what they do? They da 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 da. If you don't do that, you probably won't die on a hang glider. And that's the way the school, our school works.
Right. Well, and I know sometimes that can be the fatality. I think sometimes it becomes a little bit of a taboo topic. You almost don't want to talk about it, but at the same time, you have to talk about it. So I think, you start out, as you mentioned, your instructors don't ever want to crash again. And we definitely don't want riders to die. So I think those are two good overall lessons. And you had mentioned the braking at speed, and I remember that, and I actually just a couple of days ago read that section in your book and found it interesting, because I don't think I had seen a lot of other instruction that said, not only just try hard braking, but try hard braking at the speeds that you want to be riding. And,
yes, sir.
And I thought that was great advice. And I typically, when I go out, I'll still run over. I have access just to the little course that you have to go on to get your certification and to get your endorsement. And I like to just make a few laps, go through the drills. But even there, at least in Utah, it was, get up to, I think, between 15 and 18 miles an hour and then brake hard. But how often are you just riding 15 to 18 miles an hour? So I like that I saw that in the book. And I'll circle back to what you said. And one thing you noted in the book that struck me and was that you also have books that you still keep around, and they're kind of dog-eared at this point. Yeah. Lots of notes. And so I've started dog-earing your book and marking in the margins. And I know I'll go back and read this. And I would highly encourage, if the new rider digital course is anything like the core curriculum, for me personally, it was very helpful to see it. I'm a visual learner, and so I think the book is actually a nice complement to the classes. So and then of course being there in person, there's nothing like that. So along those lines of being there and taking the class in person, you hinted at this a little bit with your first question, but can you think of some specific, just really rewarding moments? Maybe a certain rider that came in and maybe they had really bad experiences, or maybe they even had a really bad experience on day one and still showed up, or were hesitant maybe. Can you pinpoint some classes that you walked away with just feeling like that was a rewarding day?
Yes, I can. There's a certain personality and person out there, and you're one, I'm one. My staff are part of this personality where motorcycles are your life. They give you therapy, they give you friendship. I met my wife at the racetrack. They're your whole life. It's kind of all you want to do. Everything else is kind of waiting to ride motorcycles. If you can take your motorcycle, you will. It's raining, but I'll go. That's the way we are. And we will meet these people. It's not every student, but it's by the time you decide to come to Champ School, you're pretty motivated. You're pretty much into it. And we will get these riders who show up, and you can see it in their eyes. And as you end up talking to them, they've crashed themselves almost out of the sport. The last time they're going to try it, they've been told by their family they shouldn't do it. Their accountant tells them they shouldn't do it. They're right at the edge of giving up this incredible dream, this feeling that they get nowhere else. And that's on a motorcycle. And when we meet those people and we reach them. I mean, Paul, you saw what happens, right? You see what happens. We reach these people. And if we haven't reached them on day one, we try harder on day two. And we just keep pushing these ideas of this is the way the bike works. Do this, don't do that. This works because of this. Don't do this because this will happen. We get that whole going. And when those people, when we get done, I mean, there's tears in their eyes. I'm not kidding. They are shaking our hand at the end and hugging us with tears in their eyes, because this means so much to them, and it's almost been taken away. So that type of person, it makes me cry inside to think that there's so many of them that have a bike. They've felt the joy of it. The joy isn't every moment of the ride, but they've had moments of joy on these rides where, like, oh my gosh, I'm so glad I'm a motorcyclist. But they've had so many close counters or crashes. They really think I'm not good at this, when in fact, they are doing the wrong thing with their inputs at the wrong moment. It is simple as their processes aren't right. It has nothing to do with their prior history, how tall they are, their gender, nothing, except their processes are wrong at the wrong moment. So those are incredible moments, and the instructors recognize themselves in that student. And then there's been a couple of, incredible cases. One guy, 36-year-old accountant, he shows up at the school. 36-year-old accountant shows up at the school. He has an R6, Yamaha R6 at home in the garage, but he could not ride it home. He had the dealer deliver it because he could not ride a motorcycle, but he had an R6, Valentino Rossi Dainese leathers, Valentino Rossi AGV helmet, all sitting there waiting, but he could not ride a motorcycle. But at the age of 36, he saw something hit his brain, like, I got to ride. And so here's this guy shows up, and I remember he was getting filmed in Las Vegas, and it started to drizzle. And he was the last person to get filmed on day one. It started to drizzle. And of course, the instructor filming him backed off because grip is down in the wet. And this guy crashed in the rain, and he got up and he was in tears. He goes, how did the instructor know? How did he know where the grip was? It was just so cute. But the reason I can laugh is because this guy is now qualified for 4 AMA nationals. He teaches at a high level. He's just totally into the whole sport. It's changed his whole life. But he had such low moments and couldn't even ride when he showed up, but he just hung in there. And then a gal named Kat Zimpel showed up, and she'd been to other schools, but just hadn't got what she needed. She was a professional ballroom dancer and a businesswoman, and she showed up at our school and ended up coming to a few schools, and then decided, man, you know what? I really understand this. I'm going to go racing. And she ended up winning 10 amateur championships up and down the East Coast, racing for a year and a half. Without ever crashing. And I remember she's a standout as well. And now we use her as a coach because she just bought in. She thought, oh, I see how this works. So there's thousands of stories like that, but those are two that really stand out because those two just came in and really paid attention and listened. And who knows, Paul, who knows what will happen, because, you're an old guy, and maybe you should go armor racing with us, because all of us, bunch of us old guys, go vintage racing all the time. It's just the gas. So maybe that's in your future. Who knows, right?
Well, I'm not going to say it wasn't just now rolling around in my head.
Exactly.
As you talked about it,
Yeah.
It definitely gets in you. Riding in general, as you mentioned, it's what you wait to do, and you keep kind of looking out the window, and it's funny you mentioned that. Just yesterday, I just needed to run and print something out. I was out of ink and funny enough, it was printing out some of these questions I had to ask you today, and I was out of ink, and I was looking out my window at my bike. I just got to run to Walmart. It's only about 5 minutes away.
Yeah.
So I get it. And
on that note, I've got a dear friend who's he works in the mental health areas, and he rides motorcycles. And he wrote a story for me years ago, and we talk about it all the time. He said the number one therapy he would give his clients, if he could, was to have them ride a motorcycle. And we actually talked about it in detail. But he said even when you look at your motorcycle, it provides you choices, and it provides you the freedom of making choices. And he said in those choices is happiness. And Keith Culver, one of our owners and our COO, we talk about helmet therapy all the time. We literally say, I need a little helmet therapy, because you get on that motorcycle and all of a sudden you are in control of your destiny, and that face shield is shut, and you can't think of all the bad news and all the things that are happening in the world. You just think about these wonderful choices you get to make. So there's a real feeling to that. And my comment is, the therapy of motorcycling cannot kill the patient, if you think about it that way. So our goal at ChampSchool is to allow our patients, our students, to get the therapy and survive it and enjoy it literally every moment of the ride. to where there's no more, I hope I can make this, or I hope I don't know where this corner goes, or I hope I can miss that gravel, where every moment of the ride is controlled. Because as my friend said, that therapy gives us happiness, and there's a lot to it, right? You rode your bike to Walmart and you get to Walmart happy. That's the way it is.
Yep, definitely. Well, I've been a mindfulness practitioner for a while, and there's nothing like getting on a bike for being in the moment. I agree, and you're right. I had not thought of that, but even kind of just looking out at the bike gives you kind of gives you those little flutters, and it sets off the endorphins, I'm sure, and just makes you happy thinking about it. So I agree for sure. Well, those are great examples, and I'm sure you do have hundreds of them, and
it's crazy.
Even for me, it was just a minor, really enjoying the ride back through the Virgin River Gorge a little more than I had going down, and that was just that. And I looked forward to it.
Yes.
And so, it's a small moment. It was 11 miles, but it was a great moment. And so thank you for that.
Yeah.
Well, Nick, I just have one more question for you. I appreciate again all your time today. At the beginning of our question, and I asked you about some of your greatest accomplishments. So I guess my last question for you is, what's next? Do you have something in your bucket list that you haven't checked off yet? Something you still want or aspire to do? And maybe a couple things. You had mentioned hang gliding. So anything two-wheel related or flight? The power of flight?
Well, I live right below this very tall cliff, and I see raptors up there all the time, and I do not hang gliding. I think I want to parasail. What's behind? I don't know. What's behind the boat? Parasailing or paragliding?
Parasailing's behind a boat, and paragliding is the same sail, but you're doing it.
Yeah, I'm interested in paragliding. So if anybody out there wants to talk to me about that, I'm in Colorado. But I don't know that that's a big thing. It's funny. What I would like to do, Paul, is I'd like to maintain my current life as long as possible. That's what that's my goal right now. And my wife Jean and I talk about that, is that you get to a place in life where it's just very, very good, and all cylinders are hitting. We're still young and active and enjoying our lives. And my gang at YCRS, just incredible. Chip Spalding and Keith and Lamore, Josh Siegel, Chris Paris, Alex Hatfield, all these guys, Cody Wyman and these guys, Isaiah Davis. And I don't name them because they need to hear themselves on rider.com. I name them because these people are outstanding. You know what I mean? Keith once accused me of inviting all my friends to work at the school. And that's the way I feel. All these people are my friends because they are just totally into what they want to do. And once you start to hang around with motorcyclists, especially road racers, they really understand how time works. There's nothing you can do to take back a crash. There's lots you can do to not repeat the crash, which is what we focus on. But to take back the crash, there's nothing you can do. You can't rewind time. And road racers realize that. My wife was a road racer, and she realizes that once bad things have gone wrong, it is just time to fix, correct, and not repeat. So that is really a wonderful group to hang out with. And so to answer your question, I'd like to maintain what I'm doing right now. I just got a new race bike, so I'm really excited about that. I got a Speedworks built me this 1989 FCR 600 Yamaha, which is what I raced back in the day, some nationals and Willow Springs stuff. So I'm back on a bike that I raced back in the day for Arma, and I just love it. It's the first race bike I've ever had at my house. Every race bike I've owned or even owned has never been with me. It's always been with my tuner or the factory team. So this is a wonderful thing to have my very own FCR 600. I just love working on it. It's in complete pieces right now, and I just love it. And Speedworks built it for me. Steve Long out there is just an incredible builder. So I like that. Kerry Andrew has a little GPC 550 that is Chris Cars that I race now and then. I just hope to keep doing some Armor racing. I have an old truck. I like to load up the old truck and go to these Armor races. So that's really cool. And then I've got an MT10 coming this month or next. So a lot of fun things happening. I've got that FGR 1300 that we talked about. That is my touring bike. So a lot of things are going on motorcycling. And I'd like to just kind of put the world on a pause and just stay at 61 for a couple more decades and just enjoy what we got going on with the school, with my life, and with motorcycling.
Well, having met you and seen you in action, if anybody can do that, I've no doubt it's you. So, and I'm glad to hear that things are going so well for you. And I hope that
thanks,
for
Paul.
you. Yeah.
Well, it's due to people like you that give of yourselves, frankly, to show up and do these things and to write things, write the truth. And I told you when I met you, hey, if we do a bad job, say it. Say this is not worth it, but you didn't. You said they did a good job. It's worth it. It's worth the money. It's a bargain. And that is, people will say, gosh, that's a lot of money. Well, they're buying a shock absorber, ECU upgrade, and a pipe. So that's more than what we're asking for. And why do you buy those pieces, everybody? You buy them because you want your bike to work better, to go faster, to handle better, whatever else it is. And what we will guarantee you is if you spend that money with us, buy all the parts you want, that's fine. But I'll guarantee you, if you spend that money with us, we will make your bike handle so much better than any part you could ever bolt on it that you will be surprised. So, and Paul, you know that. You're nodding your head because you saw how fast my instructors go with you on the back of a stock. What'd you ride, FC1 or MT10? Do you remember?
Yeah, I think I was the MT10.
Yeah, so on the back of a stock MT10, stock with except for Q3 pluses, now they're a Q5S tire on it. That's the only thing we change, how well that bike works with proper input. So everybody says, oh, that school's so expensive. Oh, really? Oh, you've bought all these bike parts. Why? Oh, I want my bike to be better, be faster. Well, we will make your bike better and faster and beyond your belief. That is truly the deal. Because if you think about how could we be doing what we're doing, how could we be sold out and full at the price we're paying? The only way we could do it is because people get more than what they need. And you can say, well, I don't think a Porsche is worth the money. That's fine. Just buy the used Hyundai. That's fine. But there are many people who buy the Porsche and believe it's worth the money. And that's really what we're trying to show you with our school is that if you can take the time and the money, we will provide for you a device that makes your bike a whole lot better.
Well, I don't sugarcoat things. I call them as I see them, and I was pleased to say how great everything was. Definitely well worth it. That does cycle back to that. You can buy the parts, but it's in that case you're paying to develop the onboard engineer, really. And
there you go. Perfect.
That's invaluable. So. Well, thank you so much. We'll include links to the school. Is there anything else you'd like us to mention or anything else you want to add at this point?
The prices of our online schools are kept low on purpose, and we could charge more and make more, but the more hands we get these in, the better life's going to get for motorcycling. And that's why they're on purpose low. They're not a profit center for us. They're just kind of breaking even. And that's exactly fine with us because at some point, Paul, if those of us who know how the bike is supposed to be ridden don't step up and start to speak over some of these bad voices, then our sport will just kind of continue to idle along, not really grow, continue to hurt people, repeatedly hurt people. And the faster these riders try to ride or the more mistakes they make, the more they get hurt. So those of us who know, and you're among those now, Greg is too, he's been to the school. Those of us who know had better step up and say stuff. So our idea behind these champ schools, these Champ U programs, new rider at this point, core, we have Champ Body coming out, we have a traffic survival coming out. If we can't get those into everybody's hands because they're overpriced, then we would be missing out on what I believe is one of our core precepts is to those who know have to start saying stuff, and we have to overwhelm the voices of straight line braking only, get off the brakes before you tip in, power through the corner, you should be braking or accelerating, don't cover the brake lever. We have to overwhelm those voices because 4,900 riders have died on a motorcycle per year for the last 5 years. So that's 25,000 riders who have died on a motorcycle. And you can think to yourself, well, gosh, they made bad choices, but I will prove to you they made bad choices based on what they knew. They learned things that were incorrect, literally anti to what the designers of the bike have done. So that is why we truly appreciate you, Greg, the whole community at Rider that jumps in behind these ideas and talks about rider training, because that is what will grow our sport. We have the ABS, the TC, the yaw control, the wheelie control, TC at lean angle, power modes. We have all those things. We have the best tires imaginable. The bikes are outstanding, yet we're still dying on them because the rider is not doing the right things. And our whole idea behind Champ U and Champ School and Champ Street and Champ Mill, all the programs that we do, is to bring the rider up to the level of the motorcycle. And you, having seen that, and now jumping in with this podcast with me and being so pushy about this message, is truly appreciated by our group, because I believe we can change motorcycle riding in America when we get that rider up to the level of the motorcycle.
Well, it's a good message. It's and a good mission, I think. So that's it's valiant, and I admire it, and I appreciate what you guys are doing. So we're glad to help promote it and keep our eyes out for those new courses. Please let us know as those new digital courses come out, and we'd be glad to help you spread the word. So
yeah, terrific. Thanks, Paul. Yeah, take one of your non-riders and put them through the course and see what they think. It'd be really fun, because that is what we hope for. We hope that non-riders who had motorcycle interest would take Champ U New Rider and see that, oh my gosh, I can do this. That is one of the main messages of Champ U New Rider is you can do this, but you must do this and not do that. Do this, don't do that. So that would be a wonderful thing. That'd be fun.
all right. Well, I've got a lovely woman that I live with.
Good.
Who loves to be on the back of the bike. So I'd love to see her at the helm.
Heck yeah, man. Heck yeah. Well, thanks so much for this. It means a lot to us. It means the world to us, because this is what my group has decided to do. We've decided to take our lives and run a motorcycle school, and it is our lives. I mean, it's all we talk about. It's all we do. So for you to support us like this is truly appreciated.
Well, it's a pleasure. I truly enjoyed it. Great group of folks. Please send my best and my gratitude to everybody on the team, everybody in Las Vegas that was there, and what a great experience it was. So
Will do.
Well, thanks, Nick. I appreciate it, and I hope you have a good rest of the week and weekend, and we'll look forward to talking to you soon.
Thanks, Paul.
All right, thank you. Bye.
If you've enjoyed listening to the Rider Magazine Insider Podcast, please subscribe, leave us a positive rating, and tell your friends. We also encourage you to visit ridermagazine.com, where you can get the latest in motorcycle news and reviews and sign up for our free weekly newsletter. You can also subscribe to print and digital editions of Rider Magazine, which is published 12 times a year. Thanks again for listening.